In the next section, Sai Prasad will show us how to share contents in Power BI. He is from India and he is a Microsoft Project MVP and a Microsoft Certified Trainer in Power BI. Okay, now let's get started.
Sharing is caring. When you share your Power BI content with others, you are creating an experience of how much you care for them. Knowing what their needs are and where they come from will help you to choose the right method of sharing this content with them. My name is Sai Prasad. I've been using Power BI for the last 3 years. I'll walk you through on some of the methods of sharing this content to create a magical experience. These users will fall in one of these two groups. They can be people in your organizations like employees or people outside your organizations like partners or suppliers. Before we look at different methods of sharing this content to these two groups, you need to know what their needs are. So their needs could be quite different. They may want to export the content as an image, a PowerPoint or a PDF file, or they may want to interact with the content through reports, dashboards, and apps, or even build their own content by using Power BI desktop or service, or even using Excel in order to connect to a remote dataset. So first, let's focus on who are the people in this organization and who are the people outside this organization. In this example, we have two employees in my tenant, Sai and Prakash, who already comes with the Power BI Pro license. I have another tenant, which is my supplier tenant, who has John as a user. In order for John to consume the content in Power BI, he already comes with the Power BI Pro license assigned to him as a part of Office 365. And he is also added as a guest user in my primary tenant. So rather than sharing your content with individual users, I have created two security groups, one for employees, another for suppliers. Employees are having two members, one is Sai and Prakash. Suppliers is having only one member, which is John in this case. So let's focus on how can we share this content to people in your organization as well as people outside the organization so that they can view this content as well as export this content. Now let's start with the employee Sai. Sai has already created a workspace called Adventure, which has reports, datasets, and dashboards. So his need is he want to share this report to both employees as well as the supplier security group, but with some restrictions. He does not want members in the supplier security group to copy visuals from the report that is being shared. So first, let's go to the tenant settings of my Power BI admin portal. So since we are allowing guest users to access your Power BI content, we should keep this enabled always. The next question is, whom are we allowing to copy visuals? Since we are allowing only employees to copy visuals, you should go for a specific security group. Why? The entire organization includes both your users as well as your guest users. So you need to be very restrictive in this case. So once you have these settings enabled or changed, let's look at different methods of sharing this report with employees as well as suppliers. In my first example, we will look at the report called Order Quantity Insights by Occupation. So I want to give a direct access of this report to the members of these groups. I go to the Manage Permission. I'll go to Direct Access. Let's add both these security groups here. Employees and suppliers. I have granted access to this report and even to the underlying data set. Now let's look at from Prakash perspective, how can he discover this shared content? Let's go to the Browse Shared with Me page. Let's do a refresh again. Now we can notice the shared content is visible to him. So when he is accessing this report, he is having the feature to copy this visual as an image so that he can paste it outside the Power BI service. But what about the supplier, John in this case. So let's go to John. So let's see where he can discover the shared content. On the home page, we have from external orgs. This will list all the shared content from other organizations. So let's open the order quantity insights. Let's get in. You should not be able to copy the visual in this case, and that's what naturally happens. So make sure that your tenant settings is being customized as per the needs of your users or the needs of your business. Now let's go back to my primary tenant and let's look at the workspace once again. The second method of sharing the report with the suppliers and employees is by sharing a link with them. So let's open this report. I'm using the share feature here. The first option here, people in your organization, means we are talking only about members in this organization. This naturally excludes your guest users, or you cannot use this option to invite your external users also. So I go for a specific people here and we will say apply. I will have both these security groups, employees and suppliers. I'll create a link for them. Now let's see how we can discover this content. We will again start with the home page of Prakash. Let's go to browse. Let's go to shared with me. He is unable to find that shared content. Why? Because for internal users, they need to access the report at least once in order for that report to be listed in this page. So let's add a new tab and let's paste this link. And once the report has been accessed by Prakash, let's go back to shared with me page. Let's do a refresh. I should be able to find both these reports in the same place here. But what about my external user? So let's go back to the home page here and I'll go back to my from external orgs. I should be able to find that content without even accessing that report. So let's access that. The sales insights by occupation. So it's quite easy for the guest user to discover content otherwise. Can I have a same app with a different content for different audience group? Let's say for employees, I want this app to have dashboards and reports, whereas for suppliers, I should have one of these reports available to them. So let's see how we do this. We start by creating an app where we can give a description to this app for them to discover it. The next step, I will add all the related content that applies to both these audience groups. Let's go for add content. I've added the dashboard and both these reports. The next step is very important. This is where you say who your audience group is and what they would be able to access from this app. So I have created the first audience group called employees. So the employees group should have access to the dashboard and both these reports. So no change required. So I want members of the employees security group only to have access to these three items. Now let's create another audience group for suppliers. So suppliers should have access only to the order quantity report. So let's hide the dashboard. Let's hide the other report. And I would say members of suppliers security group will have access to this. So let's publish this app. Now let's close this. Now let's find out how Prakash, the internal user, as well as John, the guest user, can discover this app and access it. So let's start with Prakash. Here I am in the Power BI service homepage. Since he is an internal user, he can go to apps. He can use the get apps feature to search for the app and install it. So let's access the app. He can find the dashboards. He can also see both these reports within this app. Now, what about John, the guest user? So now let's go to the Power BI service homepage of John. So when John tries to use the apps, and Get Apps is unable to find the adventure. Why? Because this page will list only the apps that are published within its tenant. Since this app is being supplied by an external tenant, you should go to the home page once again and select the From External Aux. The From External Aux will list all the shared content coming from an external tenant. So let's access the Adventure app here. So here you can notice there is only one report that is being made visible for him. So when we share reports, dashboards, or even app, we can give different levels of permission for different groups. Now let's focus on what we have covered here. So when you are interested in sharing your content to people in your organizations, make sure that in your tenant settings, these options has been enabled or disabled. You can either go for the entire organization or specific users, but do remember the entire organization excludes your guest users. But if you want to share your reports or dashboards or apps, you need to go for specific users and groups feature only, or you can go for the manage permissions through which you can grant permission for your guest users to consume this content. There is a difference in the way how your internal users are going to discover the chat content. They either need to go to the Shared with Me page, whereas your external users need to go to the From External Orgs tab in order to find that content. Now let's focus on how do you allow your users to build their own content on top of your dataset. So we will start with our Adventure workspace. If you recall, I have already shared these reports to my suppliers and to my employees. This means they already have a read permission on this dataset. So with a read permission on a dataset, they would be able to read the data of this dataset through the already created reports and dashboards, but they will not be able to build any new content on top of it. Another way by which you can give build permission to this dataset is by adding them at a workspace level by giving them a contributor access at least so that they can build content on top of all datasets that is there within this workspace. So we were more interested in giving them a build permission on this specific dataset. So let's go to the manage permissions of this dataset. And I already have suppliers and employees with a read access. So I will just add a build permission to both of them. Now with the build permission, they should be able to discover as well as consume this dataset. So let's start with Prakash. I am in the Power BI service homepage of Prakash, my employee. I go to the data hub and he is able to find the datasets. The datasets that are listed in the data hub are the ones with which he has read or read and build permission. So let's open the customer sales dataset. There are several options that are available for him to build his own content. The first and the most easiest way by which he can do it is by using the tables pane. He can select one or more fields within these tables to quickly export this data into a different format. So let's say he is interested to know the total sales by occupation. So let's select occupation, let's select the total sales amount, and here it is. There are different ways by which he can export this content. It can be a PDF, it can be an Excel workbook, or even to a document. So this would be a time saver for him if he wants to quickly export this content. But what if he wants to build some visuals on top of this dataset? He has a few options here again. He can auto create a report based on this dataset. Let's go for auto create here. The auto create will examine your data model, and based on the selections that you make across your data model, it will help you to build insightful visuals. So based on the selections, occupation, and order quantity, you can naturally notice different types of visuals that are being shown. So if I just change this to sales amount, we have a different insight. I can even save this report and share this report with others. Now let's save this as sales insights. Now let's go back to the data hub once again to look at a few more options of consuming this data set. Now, if Prakash wants to build this report from Power BI desktop, are there any other requirements that needs to be fulfilled? Yes. The Power BI desktop is a client application. It uses a live connection in order to connect to your remote data set. So going back to the tenant settings of your Power BI admin portal, you should ensure that the live connection is enabled. Once it is enabled, Prakash would be able to do a live connection to this data set by using Excel or by using feature tables or even by using Power BI desktop. So we have made it enabled, so it should work. So let's have the Power BI desktop opened. So I have signed in as Prakash, okay, and I should be able to find that data set in my data hub. So let's go to the data hub. I look at all, I see my customer sales. So let's say connect. So now Power BI desktop is doing a live connection to that remote data set, and you can build a composite data model on top of this connection based on your requirement. Now let's look at another method through which Prakash can build a new content. The other method is he can use analyze in Excel. So let's start from there. Let's use analyze in Excel. So this downloads an Excel file which has a live connection to your remote data set. So let me download this file. So now let's say I want to see the total sales amount by customer's occupation. I'll have my measure in my values and I will have occupation in my rows. Now I can save this file and I can share this file to others. But do remember, for them to refresh this table, they should have a build permission on the underlying data set. Now let's say Prakash requirement is a bit different. He doesn't want to use analyze in Excel. Rather, he already has an Excel workbook with a few customer keys. He wants to do a lookup of the name or the occupation of the matching customers by using the remote data set. Let's see how we can do this. So I just go back to my data model where I have marked this customer table as a feature table. So these feature tables will be available in Excel as data types. So we have selected a few columns of this customer table in order for this to happen. We have selected the customer key as a key column, which has unique values, through which we would be able to link the data in your Excel workbook with a row in your customer table. The row label has been mapped to the name field, which will help you to find what has been matched for the matching customer key. So let's find out how we use this. I go back to my Excel workbook and we go to the data tab and data types. So the data types will list all the featured tables, okay, that you're having access to. So by keeping the customer key selected, let's select customer. So it automatically found out that Christy is the name of the customer of that particular customer key. So if I'm interested to know the occupation of Christy, I can use this add column icon in order to add the other details of that particular table. Let's say I am interested to know the occupation of Christy, I can do that. So this is a feature that everyone would love if they don't want to use analyze in Excel. Rather, they want to use the data types feature in Excel to do a lookup of your remote data set. When using Analyze in Excel, you may see an error if your data is beyond 2 GB. How do we handle this scenario? You can go for XMLA endpoints. To get the XMLA endpoint of this particular workspace, you should have this workspace in a premium capacity, or this workspace should be promoted with a PPU license. So here I am in the Adventure workspace. So let's go to the settings of this workspace and elevate its license mode to a premium per user content. It is quite natural that anyone who is going to consume this content should also have a PPU license in this case. So this is my XMLA endpoint to this workspace. I'll copy it. I will save it. So now my next step is how can Prakash use this XMLA endpoint to connect to the different data sets that he has access to. So let's go back to the Excel workbook. He goes to the data, get data, from database, from analysis service. So the backbone of your data model is your analysis service. So let's select this. So the server name is your XMLA endpoint, and I will provide my username here. So this will be Prakash. So once he is able to connect through this XML endpoint, you should be able to access all the data sets for which he has built permission. So right now we are in customer sales. We will select next. We'll do a finish. I want to create a pivot table report from this data set. Let's say OK. Now you have a very similar experience when you compare it with your Analyze in Excel. The basic difference is you are using an XMLA endpoint in order to connect to a remote data set. Now let's take a quick example to understand this. We'll have the measure sales amount in values, and we'll have the names of these customers in rows. Now let's focus on John, our guest user, how he discovers, connects, and builds his own content on top of the shared data set. I have logged in as John to the Power BI service, and on the home page, I can notice my customer sales dataset has been listed from external orgs. So let's open this dataset page. I have a few options for building my own content here. So let's auto create a new report on this dataset. When I save this report, it will not be saved in my tenant, rather it will be saved in the tenant of the external organization. If you want this to be changed, you need to go to the Adventure workspace and make some small changes to the dataset settings. So let's go to the customer sales dataset and look at its settings. You can notice that you are not allowing your external users to discover, connect, and even save their content on their own tenant. So this means that they will still be able to build their own content, but the built content will not be saved in their own tenant. But if you want this to be changed, make sure it has been turned on. You may not want everyone in your organization to share their data sets with their guest users. So you have a higher level of control in your Power BI admin portal. You can be very specific whether the entire organization or specific security groups, can turn on the external data sharings on dataset. You can even have another level of control whether your guest users can work on shared data sets within their own tenant or not. So once you have these options enabled, we can go back to the Power BI desktop. I have logged in as John in this case. So John should be able to build his own content, and he should also be able to publish this report inside his own tenant. Let's find out. To make this work, you should have the most recent version of your Power BI desktop. I have the September 2022 release. So I go to the Home Data Hub. I go to External Data. This will list all the data sets that are having the external sharing enabled. So let's select the data set and connect. You might be expecting it would do a live connection to that remote data set. That's not a feature supported yet. So it is going to create a composite data model where it uses a direct query in order to connect to the data set. So let's say OK. Now you have been provided an option. So select the tables that you're quite interested with. Now let's say I'm interested on both my customer and my sales table of this data set. Let's do a submit. And let's have a quick visual. So I would like to see the total sales by occupation. So I'll have the measure in my values. I'll have the occupation in my axis. So now it does a direct query to the remote data set to have this visualization. So now I can publish this report to any workspace within my tenant. So this feature is called in-place data sharing or cross-tenant dataset sharing. Now can John, our guest user, use Analyze in Excel, feature tables or XMLA endpoint? Let's find out. I go to the customer sales dataset page and let's use Analyze in Excel. So to make this work, you need to make a few changes to the connection string that this Excel file is using to authenticate and pull that information. I go to the Data tab, I visit the Properties to examine the connection string that is being used. You can notice the identity provider is login.microsoftonline.com/common. We just need to change common to the name of that tenant which was sharing you this data set. So let me replace this with the provider tenant. And that's it. Let's say OK. Now you should be able to access the remote data set through Analyze in Excel. So let's have the sales amount measure in values and occupation in rows. Now you might be wondering, can your guest users use feature tables? Feature tables is a feature that is not available for your guest users because these data types are being pulled only from John's tenant and not from the other tenant. Now let's look at the last feature of how your guest user can use an XMLA endpoint. So let's get the XMLA endpoint of this workspace. I go to Settings, Premium, and look for the XMLA endpoint here. Let's copy this. I'm back to my Excel workbook. So in this new sheet, I'll go to the Data tab, Get Data from my database, which is an analysis service. Now I give the XMLA endpoint as my server name and give my credentials as John. You can notice an error that it is unable to find that specified workspace. What does this mean? It is not able to find the workspace called Adventure in John's tenant. How to fix this problem? We just need to replace this my org with the name of the provider tenant, which is mymadras.onmicrosoft pmi-ip.com. So let's move to the next step. Now it is able to discover this data set and we are able to connect to the different tables. So let's accept the defaults. Let's do a finish on the pivot table. Now I can see the sum of sales by the customer's name or even by customer's occupation. If you want your internal users to build content, focus on your tenant settings. The live connection and your XML endpoints needs to be turned on if you want them to use Power BI desktop or featured tables or an XML endpoint. Make sure the build permission has been granted on those datasets. They would be able to discover these shared datasets by using the Data Hub page. When it comes to your guest users, you should have enabled guest user access on your Power BI content. You should also enable the external dataset sharing so that they can build their own content and save it in their own tenant. So they would be able to discover this shared content from the home page from external orgs tab. So in this video, I have showcased different methods of sharing your content, which can be reports, dashboards, apps, and datasets with both internal users as well as external users. And you can grant different levels of permission on this content so that you are able to create that magical experience that you want.
All right, now let's come to the Q&A sessions. Hi everyone, can you please scan the QR code on the screen to give us some feedback for the future events? And also give it back to Sai Prasad. Hello Sai, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Yep, you want to show your camera?
Yeah, it's turned
Yeah,
on.
okay, yep. In the Q&A box, we have a question here. I will read it for you. Hi, Sai. Can we embed a Power BI dashboard in PowerPoint? Will it be affected if I share the PowerPoint slides to other people?
Okay, so the question is, can I share my Power BI content in PowerPoint, correct?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so is there a mention, is it a static content or a live content?
like the interactive content.
Interactive, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yes, both are doable with Power BI. Okay, so I'll give you a quick idea of how it can be done. So let me share my screen.
Yeah.
So let me get back to my workspace. I hope you can see it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just taking one of the reports here and let's start by using this export feature. So where you have two choices here, you can embed all the pages of this report as PowerPoint slides, or you can have an embed live data. So let me show you the first option, embed as an image. So you can go by the default settings, whether it should be the current values. When you say current values, if you have made some selections, those selections will also be exported in the slides. So I'll go with the default values and I will say export. So we need to wait for a while for this presentation to be generated. So as it is busy exporting the pages as different slides, what you should be quite aware is this is quite useful if you would like to share your content with users who are not having any Power BI license or they don't know how to use a Power BI also. So let me have this opened. So since I have only one page within this report, you will notice I have a presentation that is beautifully created, which has only one slide or a couple of slides. But you know, I will not be able to interact with any of these images, but quite useful if you just want to have a snapshot of the report and you want to share it with others, or you want to do a presentation offline. Okay, so this is one method. The other method is you can use the embed live data. Okay, so remember, if you want to use the embed live data, right, you need to have, okay, a build permission on top of your data set, because you are allowed to interact with your content, which means you are creating a new content anyway here. So let's use the embed with live data. So you have a series of choices here. You can either copy this link, open a PowerPoint, and use the Power BI add-in for doing it. If you feel you're quite new to that approach, okay, you can just directly open it in PowerPoint, and Power BI will make sure that it automatically embeds that live link to that presentation, okay, within that add-in. Okay, so let's wait for this report to appear. So as you can see that it looks like an image for us, but it is an interactive slide. So let's select any of these bars here. You can see that I am having the selections reflecting across my image. So here you are also having some options here. So as you can, let me open this in a slideshow so that you can see this. So you have some options here. You can apply some filters because it's an interactive content. Okay, and on top of it, you can even say whether I want to do a refresh of this PowerPoint. Okay, or I can even do a reset, or I can even convert this to a static content. Okay, I can even say whether it should be a static content or not. Okay, so was this answering your question?
That's that's the first question, and the next question is if that person say the size with other people, will can they see the dashboard?
Okay, can I send this presentation with live content to others? Correct?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it is doable. Okay, if those recipients are also having a build permission on your data set. So let's understand this first. So when you are sharing a live content to them, right, which means that they are not having a static version, rather they are having a the same report link in the shared content, which means from their computer, Power BI, the PowerPoint will try to do a live connection to the data set. And if you don't, if they don't have the build permission on the data set, naturally this visual will not work. So naturally so if you feel that if they don't have a build permission on the data set, okay, naturally what you might want to do is you need to ensure that, right, you use this option, show as a saved image. Okay, I hope you have seen that, right? So I'm just
yeah,
using that option. So I can say save as a show saved image, and you can send this file to them. Okay, and which is quite equivalent to exporting as an image. But the moment they toggle from show as image to show as a dynamic content, right? Naturally, they need to prove their identity that I do have a Power BI license, I have build permission on the data set in order to interact with that content. So a build permission on the underlying data set is required, whether you share this presentation to them or whether they download it by themselves. That is a
yeah,
requirement. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much for the answer. Um, as you are here, would you like to share some of your like website or blogs that you wrote and or your YouTube channel? How can we contact you?
Sure. Yeah, thank you for asking that. Otherwise, I would have forgotten. Okay, thank you. So let me share my screen. Okay, so I have a blog to start with. You know my name. It is bsaiprasad.wordpress.com. So as and when and find any mistakes, and as I start learning anything new in Power BI or even with respect to project, right, I put this here. So it is updated at least once a week with new findings that I make. Okay, so you might want to even subscribe to this blog to be updated. But whether it is any technology that we are talking about, I know the difficulty to the subscribers of this blog to follow the article because there will be too many instructions that will be flowing in. So what I did is just a couple of weeks back, I started a channel called Project 365. Remember, it is only a 2 weeks baby. Okay, so it's just crying right now. So you can see that I have just 2 videos right now. So this video will will have a quite different content compared to my blog because here I share any complex concepts, right, which I will not be able to describe in sentences in a blog. So these are two of my channels through which I share what I have learned about Power BI and even with respect to Microsoft project. Okay, but I'm saying I love more of Power BI right now compared to project. Okay, because I'm surrounded with people who love data. Okay, And with respect to the resources that I often use to learn this content is, I would say, Microsoft documentation, number one, SQL BI, Guy in a Cube, and other resources which my other fellow members have told. But what is quite important is um, more than the books, more than the articles that you read, make sure that you practice. The more you practice, the more you will observe, the more you will understand better. Okay. And rather than just remembering stuffs, okay, I would say be hands on, be very practical. Okay. And because the technology is changing, what works last month is working much better this month. There is a lot of things that are changing with respect to Power BI alone. So I would say make sure that you periodically practice, share your learning with others in whatever way it is. Okay, so that you gives you an opportunity for you to revalidate whether what you have learned is still relevant right now or not. So learn and share is my mantra, I would say.
Yeah, learn and share. Thank you so much for your sharing.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's very useful. Yeah. And thank you so much for showing up here to answer my questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Dalia.
Yeah. Is there anything else you would like to share with us? As we still have 15 more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I nothing to do with the content per se. Okay, on what I was talking about. I would strongly recommend that request everyone to follow the Microsoft Learn content. Okay, and make sure that you go for a certification on the topic that you love, because the certification, whatever it be, it could be on Power BI, it could be on Excel. The moment you have a certification, there is an urge to understand things better rather than just reading randomly any blogs or videos. Okay, and what I have personally observed is, compared to courses that we are having in big websites, okay, when you follow blogs, when you comment on videos on these blogs, those authors are polite enough to even reply to your comments, right? They are able to help you out in your learning journey. Okay, and I feel that that's a great opportunity for all of us to learn better. Okay, those are the days where we can say we don't have time to learn. I think we have time in abundance. Okay, and even content in abundance. We need to prioritize how we need to learn things. Okay, and what we are quite passionate about. Okay, and I would say we don't have enough time right now. I don't think, I'm not say we don't have time. We don't have enough time. I'm feeling bad. We have only 24 hours in a day. Okay, so if we have more time, we can learn something much faster. And people around you and conference like this are good. I would say platforms for everyone to network, learn from each other, okay, and support each other so that no, we are able to grow together.
Yeah, that's right. I will definitely subscribe to your channels and websites.
Hey, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for staying up here. Hi everyone. Can you please scan the QR code or go to the bit.ly link on the screen to give us some feedback and give Sai some feedback for his presentation? It will help us improve in the future event. Thank you.